Your chosen stock crashes. It's down 10%, then 15%. Now it's 20%. And instead of cutting the loss, people hold on tighter. Because emotionally, humans hate letting go. We hate to lose. We don't let go. But here's the strange part. Insurance companies, the businesses literally built to manage risk, do the exact opposite. They actively give risks away. And today we'll take a look as to why this makes sense quantitatively and even qualitatively. It makes sense as a practical life skill. What is a stop loss? Suppose you buy a stock at 100. You place a stop loss order at 90. That means if the stock falls to 90, automatically sell it. So you're accepting a small loss to prevent a devastating one. Simple. But psychologically, it feels horrible, as we've discussed in our loss aversion video before, because selling makes the loss feel real and not just a paper loss. But make no mistake, it's not a paper loss. It's a real loss. It's just that we don't want to face the reality of it. That's loss aversion. So many investors do nothing instead. They say, it'll recover. I'm a long-term investor. I only lose if I sell. Then the stock falls 30%, 40%, 50%. And suddenly, it's no longer investing. It's become a nightmare, given the pain of avoidable loss on top of the original pain. Now, here's the fascinating connection. Insurance companies don't keep all the risks they insure. In fact, some risks are so dangerous that insurers buy insurance themselves. What? An insurer buying insurance? Yep, this is called reinsurance. And one of the most important forms is called stop-loss reinsurance. The idea is simple. We can survive ordinary managed losses, but losses beyond a level? This could be very catastrophic, and these need to be transferred. Mathematically, the idea looks like this. Absorb the risk if loss is less than X. Otherwise, if loss is greater than X, transfer that risk. Meaning, losses below a threshold stay with you. Losses above it gets passed on. That's exactly the logic behind a stop-loss order. You stop the loss at a defined level, not eliminating all losses, just preventing losses beyond prudent levels. And this is where stop-loss thinking becomes a practical life skill. Because smart people don't just use stop losses in markets. They use them everywhere. Smart people have financial discipline. They avoid doubling down on obvious mistakes. They live a schedule. They stop scrolling after 20 minutes instead of sacrificing the entire evening doom scrolling. They don't throw good money after bad. They kill failing projects before they consume all their time, money, and energy. So the hidden skill of successful people is often not persistence. It's selective quitting, knowing and deciding that, hey, this risk is no longer worth carrying. The paradox of letting go still has costs. Of course, stop losses aren't perfect. Sometimes the stock is dropping so fast, your order might be to automatically sell it if the stock hits 90, but are able to execute at way below 90. So the losses are bigger than you expected. Or the stock might recover after you sell, and quickly after that. Insurance also has costs. You pay premiums for disasters that may never happen. But professionals accept this trade-off because protection always costs something, and the cost of protection is usually far smaller than the cost of ruin. Think about it. You might pay big bucks for your car or your house insurance. That's a loss if nothing happens to your car or to your house, year in, year out. But do you say to yourself that this year, you hope something happens to your car or to your house so that your insurance premium would have been worth it? Obviously not. So you do accept those small but regular losses rather than face catastrophic losses. So yes, there are losses. At least you get to choose your losses. That's a life choice to be actively made rather than passively accepted. So do you choose low probability but catastrophic losses? Or manageable but regular costs? Well, that's for you to decide. The statistics behind stop-loss insurance. So this is the quantitative analysis part of the video. If you're not interested in this, you can go straight to the final chapter and skip this part. But it should be worth your while to take a look at the concept using numbers. Assume an insurance event with a probability of 1/10 for 10 outcomes, each paying 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to 100 each outcome. What is the fair price to pay to have this insurance work? Well, this is nothing more but the mathematical expectations, which is equal to the summation of payout times probability. In spreadsheet format, this is what it looks like. The mathematical expectation is equal to 55. This means that if you simulate this 1,000 times, you expect to pay out a total of 55 times 1,000 or 55,000 plus or minus some statistical variations. However, if you charge this as a premium, you will also receive a premium of 55 per person, which gives you 55,000 to fund the expected payouts. Now, there's a worksheet that depicts this computation and some simulations to show how this kind of thing works out. Check out the video description below. Okay, so far so good. Now, let's say you don't want to have a payout bigger than 50. In other words, you accept to insure only up to 50 and do a stop-loss insurance, transferring payouts to a reinsurer. What should be the fair price of the premium to be paid to the reinsurer? So here, you pay out anything that's beyond 50, so that means the payouts would be 10, 20, 30, all the way to 50. It turns out that the mathematical expectation here is 15. So it turns out that charging 15 for all losses that happen above 50 and absorbed by the reinsurer is the fair price. This means for a simulation of 1,000 events, we expect the total payouts of the reinsurer to reach 15,000 plus or minus a statistical variation. And in return, the reinsurer gets 15,000, charging 15 for each of the 1,000 insurance contracts. Now, does it mean that the 55 minus 15 equals 40 is the fair price for the risk retained by the original insurer? Let's take a look at the payouts and the resulting mathematical expectations. Here, the payouts for the first 5 outcomes are the same, but for the next succeeding 5 outcomes, it just stops at 50 because you have a stop-loss reinsurance. So here, the mathematical expectation is 40. So yes, indeed, the 40 out of 55 is the fair price to charge by the original insurer. But why bother with this? Well, remember our lesson on mathematical expectations and being able to play long enough? Well, to play long enough, your capital needs to be big enough to absorb large enough losses. Again, see the video description below for the link to that video. For example, without reinsurance, what if your capital is only 1,000 and you hit 10 straight insurance events of 100? Yeah, that's unlikely, but not impossible. And if that happens, then you cannot play the law of large numbers anymore, and the business folds. However, with reinsurance, that straight 10 maximum hits of 100 transforms to 10 straight hits of 50 for a total hit of only 500 and not 1,000. So you still have capital left to try playing the long game with your remaining capital. That's why it's a good idea to transfer such risk if you cannot absorb the loss at particular levels but still want to keep the business. So you reinsure the losses above some pain point. A look at the standard deviation of the payouts just show the stark contrast. Without reinsurance, the standard deviation of the payouts is 28.72. But with reinsurance, it gets cut in half to 14.14. Of course, there's a corresponding loss of premiums. So let's take a look at the coefficient of variation, which is the standard deviation divided by the mean. Per unit of mean, the coefficient of variation dramatically drops from around 1/2 to 1/3, meaning the standard deviation is way smaller, even relative to the already reduced or smaller mean. Again, showing the benefits of reinsurance. By the way, these are illustrations only of core concepts that show the underlying statistics and not an actuarial model of insurance premiums per se. But it should be clear why transferring risk and not absorbing everything is a good idea, because things should be tied up always to your capital adequacy and your ability to play the long game. Moving forward, maybe one of the most important financial lessons in life is this: you do not need to hold on to every inch of opportunity. You don't need to live on the edge because of the fear of missing out or have the words "you only live once" screaming in your brain all the time, ruling your life. You do not need to fight and survive every battle that looms ahead. You just need to be smart and pick your battles, avoiding the risks that can destroy you forever. So it's time to ditch FOMO and YOLO. Instead, have some financial discipline. Let me suggest something else. Live to fight another day. It'll be a good financial slogan. Yeah. L to FAD. Live to fight another day. And stop loss thinking is all about living to fight another day. Okay, that's all I have for today. Kindly like and subscribe to support this channel. And see you next time.